A few years ago, my brother died. A few days before he died, he had moved into a cabin in a half-abandoned village 50 miles outside of town. The village was in the woods, and I had never been there before that unfortunate day. The cabin had been given to him very cheaply by the previous owners, about 3 times less than he had intended to spend on a country house. His death was very sudden. He was never sick or complained of anything. On the contrary, he was always a cheerful man. But, as he himself told me during our last meeting, he wanted to live far away from civilization. The circumstances of his death were also strange. His body was found on the road on the way to the village, without one leg, with a grimace of pain or fear on his face. The experts decided that he had been attacked by wolves or other predators. But even then a worm of doubt crept into my soul, because my brother had never gone into the woods without a gun, and no gun was found with him. But I could not explain such a strange death in any other way. I buried my brother. As the only relative, got his dacha. So one sunny Sunday I went to the village. The first thing that surprised me was that the village had no name. According to the documents it was abandoned, but my brother said that people came there from time to time. There were no road signs, so I had to navigate by map. I arrived at the village around noon. It was rather neglected. Old houses, weedy paths, old flowers, gnarled fences. But what struck me most of all was the absolute silence. There were neither birds nor wind. The settlement itself consisted of 2 small neighborhoods. Each of them was divided into 6 plots, 2 in width and 3 in length. In addition, the settlement was surrounded on all sides by a large fence, and there was only one entrance. The block where my brother's house was located was to the left of the entrance. I decided to walk around the block to look around this strange and, despite the sunny day, gloomy place. Suddenly, I heard a creaking sound. It was like the sound of a saw moving on metal. The source of the creak was a window in one of the houses. I saw the curtain swaying outside the window, and I realized why the creak was so frightening. Apart from my footsteps and the rustling of the grass, it was the only sound in the place. I had a strange feeling that someone was watching me. After a short walk, I still decided to stop by my brother's house. It was 2 stories high. On the first floor, right after the entrance in the hallway, was the kitchen. There were potatoes on the table, and they smelled good. I took a small bite of the potato. To my surprise, it was hot. At the moment when I put the fork back on the table, a small metal ball about 1 inch in diameter rolled down the stairs from the 2nd floor. It hit each step and then rolled under the chair. I pushed the chair back, but the ball was not there. I examined the chair, thinking that the ball had stuck to it, but this time I did not see the ball either. I felt a little surprised. I couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. I didn't feel like going up to the 2nd floor to find out why the metal ball had rolled away. I decided that 15 minutes in this village was more than enough time for me. I glanced at the clock. It was already 2:30. There was no way I'd been here for an hour and a half, unless I'd been crawling around the village at a snail's pace, but that was the time. Suddenly I heard stomping and rumbling, comparable to a dozen people getting out of their beds on the 2nd floor at the same time. I was panic-stricken. I ran out of the house without even locking it. I cast a quick glance at the spot where I'd parked the car. To my horror, it wasn't there. But, thank God, she was a block away, on the other side of the village. I saw her as soon as I looked back. I was running away from the damn house, and something was already coming down the stairs behind the ball to meet me. Probably the same way it had met my brother. As I rounded the house on my way to the car, I looked back out the window and saw it. It was an unnaturally square face, or rather, a muzzle. About in the middle was a small nose, and underneath it was a mouth with sharp teeth. There were no eyes on the head. The sight of the monster gave me strength, and I rushed to the car. When I got into the cab, the creature had already left the house. It looked like a man with no left arm and a very muscular right arm, as if it had two joined arms on the right side. This arm did not grow from the shoulder, but rather from the shoulder blade. I put on the gas and passed him when he was already near the gate. I drove away in a state of terror. On the way back I often saw old wrecked cars on the side of the road in the ditch, but that was probably just my glitches. As I drove away from the village, I looked at my watch again. It was already 10 to 4. At 4 o'clock I drove off the broken dirt road onto the highway. There were many cars, I was no longer alone, there were people around, and I felt more confident. I pulled over to the side of the road and fell to my knees in exhaustion. I felt nauseous and looked warily toward the branch of the road leading to the village. It seemed to me that the creature was following me and was going to catch up with me. A car stopped nearby and a girl came up to me with a concerned look.
Are you sick? Is there anything I can do to help?
Even in her sweet face I saw the face of a monster. The girl left and I got back into the car and drove home. On the way, the fear started to go away. When I got home, the clock on the wall showed 1 o'clock, and my wristwatch showed 5:30. After this incident, I have been sleeping exclusively with the light or TV on for a year now. I became afraid of darkness and silence. I put the house on the market the same day, and for half the price my brother had bought it for. In the ad, I wrote that I didn't want it, and that it needed repairs. I hoped there would be a buyer who would take the house without an inspection. And there was a buyer. It was a couple of newlyweds who wanted to honeymoon there. I warned them that the house was a mess and no one was taking care of it, but the price was so attractive that they agreed. The night after I sold my house, I had a dream about my brother, who we were riding in the car together. He told me that he wanted to show me something I should never, ever tell anyone. When he said he was taking me to that village, I screamed no and woke up. When I woke up, I remembered that my brother was gone. A month after the sale of the house, I learned the tragic news. A girl had been brutally murdered in the house, her eyes scratched out, and her husband had gone mad. The house and the whole territory, as I understood it, had become the property of the state. Investigators came to me and asked me to tell them about the house, but I answered that I had been there only 1 day and a few minutes and knew nothing. Then for a long time there were rumors that there were many missing and lost people in that forest. People who had been caught in hunting traps were also found there. At present there is some kind of regime or military facility at this place, surrounded by barbed wire. The internet says that there is a zone of magnetic anomalies there. On Yandex and Google Maps this place is just a forest. I don't know what is really there now, and I don't want to know.